It's another close-up on combat clothing video, and in this one we're looking at the somewhat mysterious Mitchell camouflage pattern. If you haven't already done so, take a look at our two-parter covering its history to get a full sense of the pattern. For this one, we're going to be looking at some officially issued items as well as commercial ones, and even one that sort of lies somewhere in between. Maybe. It's a bit of a weird piece. So let's start off with the most common item made in this pattern, the M1 helmet cover. Seeing use beginning in 1959, there were two primary versions. The first, which is easily identified by its shorter and slightly wider flaps at the bottom, which essentially meant it also had smaller openings on either side for the chin straps. These are usually associated with earlier covers from 1959 to roughly 1969, after which the second version came out that saw longer and thinner flaps. The change may have likely been a result of newer patterns such as ERDL being printed onto updated covers, which were easier to set up and keep in place. Now, the short versus long flaps aren't as cut and dry as many have found long flapped ones with contract dates that were pre-1969, so it remains something of a mystery, though many other M1 liners post-1970 or so were made in the second design. But as for identifiers, all but the original 1959 covers featured a black stamp, usually on the cloud side of the cover, located on one of the inside flaps, while the original two contract dates from 59 featured a white tag stitched inside. Apart from graffiti, some oddities you may find on covers are horizontally stacked reflective tags stitched onto the back, and more noticeably numbers placed onto the front, back, and sides. The numbered ones, sometimes printed on, other times stitched, were used for training purposes as they were identifiers for instructors, observers, and opposing forces. These were said to have been tethered to the SCOPES training, or Squad Combat Optical Proficiency Exercise System, which itself was a part of the Real Train system. Essentially, two sides would wear these numbered covers, and if one soldier spotted another, he'd call the number out, and said soldier, if validated by a spotter, would have to play dead until the end of the exercise. This more antiquated method was eventually replaced with the Multiple Integrated Laser Engagement System, or MILES, which in the simplest of terms was a form of laser tag. Online, you can find helpful guides breaking down contracts and their corresponding years. Link to one can be found in the description. Generally though, when looking at prices, you'll see that they're going to be all over the map. Original 59 covers usually command quite a bit more, on average anywhere from $100 to $200 depending on overall condition, while ones made in the 1960s and 70s have steadily gone up in price as well, often going for around $50 to $100. Moving on from helmet covers, we have the other officially issued piece, the shelter half. Originally seen in 1953, roughly 6 years before the first helmet cover in the pattern, these were originally exclusively issued to the United States Marine Corps. However, as the 1950s turned to the 60s and the conflict in Vietnam escalated, they began to be used more frequently by other branches. Like standard green and other shelter halves of the time, they were straightforward in design, and putting two pieces together could create a miniature tent for troops to sleep or reside under. The shelter half was double-sided and also included camouflage tie straps for them as well. Like the helmet covers, they too had a basic white tag on them, with the majority being made in either March or June of 1953. It seems that after that year, they weren't really made, but did continue being used for various reasons throughout the Vietnam War. Today, they often fetch a large sum, with worn out and faded ones frequently going for $100 to $200, and like new or unissued ones sometimes going as high as $400 to $500. Now, that's pretty much it for the officially issued pieces. However, there were quite a number of theater-made garments and items that can range from canteen covers to utility caps and even fully fledged uniforms. Being that many were made in Okinawa, South Vietnam, or anywhere within the Southeast Asian area between the 1950s and mid-70s, a large number of items of all shapes and sizes are out there and can go for quite a bit of money in some cases too. That being said, during the later stages of the war and even afterwards, a lot of companies got their hands on fabric and used them to make commercially available pieces, such as this one made by Ranger. Something of a popular item for hunting or camping during the 60s and 70s, these were great against rain and the elements. However, because they often used the same fabric the shelter halves did, they did not really breathe that well in hotter or more humid terrains or times of the year. This is one of the more commonly seen ones, which features a reversible design boasting two angled waist pockets on either side of the zipper and a single chest pocket. A few of these styles are out there, along with accessories such as pouches and harnesses, all of which will range in value, but a good estimate for this particular piece is between $200 and $400. That actually brings us to the final piece, which is a very strange one to say the least. It's an M65 field jacket made in the Mitchell pattern. Inside, all it has is a tag that says M65 Army Jacket and then the size. They were mentioned before in the history of video, but between now and then, no one has really come out and definitively proven whether these were directly connected to the military or simply commercial pieces made to look that they were. Many claim that they were test pieces trialed by forces on Okinawa, and as such the need to put specific tags and information in them was not necessary, while others claim that they be lumped into the latent post-war commercial wave of items made in the pattern. What is known, at least based on having one in person, is that they are very much made in the same fabric as the shelter halves, meaning they would be great insulators and helpful in staying somewhat dry. However, being that they were made with the green vine side out and aren't exactly reversible to the cloud side, which is often associated with more autumn, winter, or generally colder months and terrains, they are somewhat limiting as a temperate and foliage-oriented piece, and not one you'd really want to wear in the jungle for long. It includes all the same features you'd expect from an early M65 field jacket, with the most curious bit being the attached hood, which actually is one made for a World War II era M1943 jacket, stamps and all. Considering all of this, the two conflicting theories can both be reinforced with its overall good quality production, so the mystery still remains. Whatever the case, like many other pieces, they are highly sought after. This one was bought a few years ago for about $350, but since then ones in rougher shape have gone for over $1,000 on eBay. But keep in mind, as of late, a few newer reproductions of varying quality have become available online, so if you're after one for whatever reason, use your best judgment. And speaking of reproductions, that brings us to copies and knockoffs, many of which have been coming out of China. Helmet covers, shelter halves, and Marine Corps utility caps are the most common items, however other items such as boonie hats and coats have also been seen. Usually these are easy to tell as they will not include the ink stamps or any traditional identifiers, plus the fact they look much newer and sell for much cheaper. Here's a quick side-by-side of an original cover from the 70s, which is on the left, and a more recent Chinese copy on the right. They'll sometimes have a faint inky smell about them along with a few telltale signs, as overall the material is vastly different while the colors are slightly brighter and shapes sometimes just a little bit off from the original design. But that'll pretty much do it for this close-up video. Hopefully it helped give a basic idea on what to look out for when dealing with Mitchell pattern pieces, as well as pricing them out. If you enjoyed it, perhaps give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already. If you don't wanna, that's alright too, just be sure to check back soon for more CCC videos right here on Uniform History.